Check the description for the following discount codes. Lots of you have been asking me for months to get this Fanatec GT cockpit in for review, and I finally managed to get one. I have been asking, there was review stock issues and what have you, and also the big changeover, where Corsair bought them out obviously as well. So I do finally have one here, and I opted for the white variant because I thought that's a bit different, you know. Most cockpits are black. You can get some variations in colour from some manufacturers, but I saw the pictures of this in white and I thought, you know what? I think we'll get a white one in for review. And I do like my white furniture, speakers, TV unit, etc. So I thought it might look quite nice in the front room here. Anyway, as you can see from the picture and from what's on the floor beside me here, this is a tubular constructed cockpit, 50mm tubular steel. Always more pleasing on the eye for most of us and for wives, girlfriends, other people than what aluminium profile is. So that's always going to be a win. Of course, at the trade-off of customization with Ali Profile, you can just bolt anything to it anywhere you want, like a big Meccano set. But doesn't look as nice as what this is going to look like. Now there are an array of accessories, shifter mounts, single monitor mount, which it comes with, I believe, as standard. Then there's triple monitor mount options, quad monitor mount options. See, we've got 3 fitted there and 1 up top. Keyboard and mouse tray options. I mentioned shifter already. There's a few different mounts for, and so the monitor mounts you can choose to be in the appropriate colour to match your cockpit. So there's a white variant if you've got a white cockpit and a black variant if you have the black cockpit. I've got the matching white seat, GT seat here as well. It's in 2 bits, but it is white when we'll see it later on assembled. Anything else I haven't mentioned? Oh, inverted pedal tray mount. For those of you who like to have your pedals upside, well, not upside down, but mounted inverted, that's an option. Anything else? Shifter mount, front mount for direct drive wheelbases. So replacing the tray that I'll show you in a second, you can have a front mount option depending what direct drive wheel you have. So we'll have a quick scroll down and then very briefly look at what we have here. There's a little animation here showing different accessories going on, and that's what it looks like in black as well. Tool-free adjustment, and that is for both the seat and the pedal tray and the wheel deck. So that's really useful if you have, say, like there's you and maybe your child, you know, perhaps you've got a 10, 11-year-old that likes to race, you know, and you're a fully grown 6-foot adult and he might only be 5 foot. Very useful to be able to switch driving positions, move the pedal tray closer, move the chair closer, you know, or lower it down if need be, without the use of tools. It looks like we've got thumb screws and then we've got rails that I see here. This is going to be for the pedal tray, I would think. There's rails there that I think is going to be for the wheel deck. And then we've got seat sliders already fitted to those sections there. So that's going to make things quick and easy to switch between drivers, or maybe even just driving positions should you like to sit one way for one type of driving and one way for another. So that's nice. They say the chair here, it's got this really nice sort of breathable fabric that you can see here, and they actually say, where is it? I think they say it's 4 times more ventilated than the competition. So I don't know whether they looked at all the other chairs from all the other manufacturers and their ventilation qualities and properties and went, right, we need to make our 4 times more breathable than what the others are. But it does feel like, you know, it is a nice breathable material. And the side bolsters here of the bucket part of the seat is made of the same material. Again, you'll get a close-up of this once it's assembled. Mentions the VESA compatible mount for your display that I briefly mentioned earlier. And then sturdy flex resistant steel frame. So what they're highlighting here, there's lots of webbing and reinforcement. This is all quite hefty, so I won't be carrying it up to the camera as such. But you can see we've got webbing in all the open areas. Now, a lot of tubular cockpits do not go this far as far as reinforcement goes. You'll often get some, but this is the most extensive amount of reinforcement I've seen on any tubular cockpit. And the same goes for the pedal tray. That pedal tray assembly weighs an absolute ton. It's actually a 2-person lift on the packaging, on the box. So I ain't picking it up to lift it up there, but once it's all assembled, you'll see. But that's got reinforcement all over the place on that, and I'll point it out in a close-up later. So I think from a sort of sturdiness and flex point of view, we're already in a good position. The only thing I will show you, because I can, it's easy, this is the wheel deck, pre-drilled for your various manufacturers. And it's got little, however you'll see that on the inside there, little markings, little incrementations, whether they actually relate to angle. It says we've got 0, we've got -3 and +4. Whether that's actually accurate to degrees or not, I don't know, but it's certainly a useful reference should you want to move things from one position to another. But this is probably 5mm steel, so pretty thick. Shouldn't have too much trouble with flex, although, you know, there is no, talking about reinforcement, there isn't any reinforcement on this. It is just a plate. But then that isn't something that we haven't seen before. That's quite common, so we'll see how that does. What else was I going to show you? On these side pieces, where these rails are, you may not see it from there, but we've got increments marked on here from 0 to 300. I'm guessing that's millimetres, because that would be 30 centimetres, would be about a foot, which is what it looks like it is. So that's useful. Everything is numbered from an assembly point of view. So like this piece here, for example, has a number 5 stuck on it. And like I say, every single piece, this one here's got number 2, that's got number 9 on it. And then all the little bags of nuts and bolts and fittings are labelled like this as well. I haven't actually got any physical instructions here, so I'm assuming when I look on the site in a minute, there'll be a PDF of some sort to download. Either that or it was just missing from my delivery, because I've been through all the boxes, I can't find any instructions. The only thing we have paper is a warranty guide, so that's not going to be a whole lot of help. So I'll check on here under support to see whether there's a link for a PDF. We've got like with this white one, we do have like some sort of yellow highlighting on a few different pieces, just to break up the white. So we've got it on there, on these. We've got it at the end of this piece here as well. And we've got the Fanatec logo sort of dotted around in a few different places as well. So I think they've really sort of thought about how they want this to look from an aesthetic point of view, as in they want it to look nice, they want it to look cool. The handle for sliding the seat back and forward, also yellow. And then we've got what looks like a couple of pieces of just trim here. They're certainly not structural. I think these are literally like, you know, just body parts, again with the Fanatec logo on, just to make things look a bit neater and a bit tidier and a bit easier on the eye. So I do look forward to getting this together and seeing what it looks like. This is one of the side mounts for the seat. And again, we've got nice reinforced webbing here, welded in, to stop this flexing. I can't remember what cockpit it was that I reviewed the other month, where the brackets for the seat, like this, were just 90 degrees. There was no reinforcement, and the whole seat was able to flex side to side. Obviously, with this webbing here, that shouldn't be a thing. So, looking good from a reinforcement and sort of structural point of view so far. I think that's probably all I need to show you really from what's on the floor here. I'll try and find the PDF and then get it assembled. They say it's a relatively quick installation and fast self-assembly. Don't spend hours putting your setup together when you could spend them racing around the track instead. Clubsport GT cockpit assembly is quick, clear and straightforward. Now, there isn't a huge amount of parts because things like the sides are, you know, like a single piece, have come kind of assembled. If it was alley profile, you'd have to make those. And the pedal tray, again, is fully assembled. It looks like it's ready just to slide on these rails somehow or another, but I guess I'll find out. Anyway, enough of that wafflage. Let's get it all put together and see how she looks fully assembled. Well, that wasn't the easiest build when it comes to putting it together. Not because it was complicated, but because a good portion of the threads that the bolts go into, maybe, let's say perhaps 30%, were very difficult to screw into. I think a lot of it is where it's been painted and there's paint that's gone in the threads. I think that hasn't helped. There was an element of things not quite lining up properly and kind of having to apply a bit of force to, you know, get something to sort of line up and quickly get the bolt in whilst holding it with my leg and what have you. And some threads just felt like they weren't cut particularly cleanly. Even if there was no, you know, on an unpainted part, there was still threads that weren't the easiest to screw into, and it almost felt like I was cross-threading them. You know, obviously I double-checked the bolt was square and parallel and pulled it out and put it back in. It wasn't, you know, cross-threaded. But I think certainly with regards to the paint on the threads, someone could do with going around with a tap at the factory after it's been painted and just cleaning the threads to ensure that the bolts can go in and out easily, because people who perhaps haven't got the same experience, sort of engineering experience that I have, could chew bolts, chew threads, get things cross-threaded and make a little bit of a mess of things. So a little bit of a niggle there. Aside from that, it all went together pretty easily. The instructions, there was an instructional video as well as PDF, so I used the video. You'll have seen that in the background of the sped up build montage. And it does look really, really nice. I like the addition of these sort of body panels that are there just for decoration, just to make it look nice. I like the little yellow accents. That's quite cool as well. The monitor mount's here in my hand. This part of it here is just designed to look nice as well as be functional. I won't be using a monitor on this, which is why I haven't installed it. But the way it works is it bolts up right there, it can slide backwards and forwards, and then the part that will go into your display hooks into these slots like that for height adjustment, and then obviously you do the bolts up. Now that's for the integrated monitor mount. If you wanted to run a larger display than what that can hold, they do a single standalone monitor mount, as you can see in this picture here, that would allow you to run a much larger display, which is my preferred option given the choice of display sizes, to give you a much bigger field of view, not only horizontally but vertically as well. And that, as you can see from there, that would kind of sit just across the top there. So that's another option. And then there's triple screen and, well, quad display mounts available as well, as I showed you earlier. But yeah, it all went together easily, apart from, as I say, a good portion of the bolts not sort of going into their threads as cleanly as they could do. Aside from that, there was no real trouble. And I do, as I say, really like the way it looks. I also like the way things adjust on this, and I'll show that in detail when I do a walk around in a moment. But because I have to hold a camera, it's not easy to show things, so I'll do a little bit of it now. Essentially, everything is on kind of quick release handles, so your wheelbase can slide forwards and backwards like this. The pedal tray is the same mechanism, so it slides backwards and forwards, and then thumb screws either side to adjust the height and the angle of the tray. And then the seat also has thumb screws here to adjust the height and the angle, and of course a traditional bar here for sliding it backwards and forwards. My cat already is having a nice little nap in there as we speak. So yeah, we got height adjustment for the seat, backwards and forwards adjustment, and the same for the wheel deck, and the same for the pedal tray. The pedal tray can come reasonably high up, and the seat could go at a reasonable angle. You could almost get kind of a formula seating position if you wanted to. But because everything's on these thumb screws, you make your adjustment and just nip them off, and then it's done. And then to adjust it again, you slacken them off, and then you move, and then you lock off again. Just super quick and easy. We'll see how much play, if any, that adds into things. Obviously the seat mechanism doesn't, that's the normal seat mechanism. And I don't think, like this, the way this works, it feels like it's kind of like roller bearings on these steel rods, so it doesn't feel to be much in the way of movement there, if anything at all. But I'll grab the camera and I'll do a close-up walk around of it now, just to show you things in a bit more detail. So we'll start from the top. So yeah, this is the base of the monitor mount that I was talking about. They're the slots that would allow you to move your display backwards and forwards. Obviously, if you don't want to use the monitor mount, you don't have to mount this section at all. There's just 4 bolts that hold it on. You could just take it off, but I mean, it almost looks like a little spoiler, doesn't it? So it's kind of cool to have it there. So these are some of the metal rods that I was talking about, and you slacken these off, and then you can slide it. So it's hard to do one-handed, especially with things all loose. I haven't done these up yet because you've got height adjustment here, a selection of bolt holes to raise up the wheel deck, or raise or lower it, depending on what you wanted to do with it. You've then also got a slot at the back here that will allow you to adjust the angle, and then there's a little kind of locator pin here, which I'll show you the inside of there. You see the -3, 0, and then +4 degrees? That kind of locks in place once you've made your adjustment before you then tighten these up, which just makes life a little bit easier. So that's the wheel deck. Pedal tray, as I mentioned a minute ago, more quick release handles there. You see all the slots going up and down. Same at the front as it is at the back. So that gives you the ability to raise and lower the pedal tray completely. You can put them both all the way at the top at the front and the back, or you could have it higher at the back, lower at the front for angle adjustment. And then of course you can slide the whole assembly backwards and forwards like this. And then you would do up these handles here, one either side, again securing it on this metal rod. So that's super quick and super easy. I really like that. Obviously there's your yellow handle for adjusting the seat backwards and forwards, and then your quick release handles at the side with an array of slots to use for height adjustment and angle adjustment of the seat. So it's a very simple way to implement adjustment, and I do like it. The seat itself, I mean, I think this looks really nice. And if I didn't have an aluminium profile cockpit on a motion system, this may well have found itself to be my primary rig, just because I like the way it looks. You know, you've got like a back panel there with the Fanatec logo in the middle. I like the fact the back of the seat is white, contrasting with the black. This sort of aero type mesh for breathability is nice. Ori's obviously finding it very comfortable to sleep on still, even though I'm rabbiting away. I like the little yellow accents we have here and there that go with the handle for the seat. It just kind of, you know, and then this textured pattern again. It's just adding a little bit more to what can be quite a bland item, a cockpit. And then I mentioned earlier about all this reinforcement, this kind of webbing that we've got. which is all going to contribute to rigidity and hopefully provide us with a nice stable racing experience. And then as we come around the front, again, more kind of body panels across the front there, and then one up there below the monitor mount as well. It is on rubber feet, they're all height adjustable, screw them in and out as you please and have lock nuts to lock them off. There is a tray kind of here that I believe is designed for putting like power supplies in PSUs. And also there's lots of slots within this rig for cable management. So here's one. The only thing I'm not happy with here, fit and finish wise, is the fact that these should have grommets in them. Not only would that prevent cable snagging on the metal itself, it would cover up that raggedy edge. That is paint, by the way. It's not a poorly cut hole. It's not sharp or anything. It's just paint. So that we could do with grommets. And speaking of fit and finish, the way they've folded the metal over on the inside of this webbing, they've just let it split at the ends and kind of hammered it into place and painted over it. And it's the same everywhere, same on both sides and at any point where that's occurred. So that isn't the best as far as fit and finish goes. And some of the weld isn't the greatest, not from a functional point of view, but just from an aesthetic point of view. I've seen, much tidier weld, but it's not going to be a problem, like I say, from a functional point of view, but they could have just, finished that a little bit tidier, in my opinion. Especially bearing in mind the price of the cockpit, which we haven't yet spoke about. €914.95 before any discount, and that is without the seat. I believe the seat is a further 300. Let's just have a look. I'm sure it's at the bottom here. There we go, GT cockpit seat. Seat, €339.95. So we're looking at about, what did I say the cockpit was? Was the cockpit 1,000 or just under? Oh, 914. Okay, so we're looking at about 1,250, 1,300 euros all in for everything together. So I would expect the fit and finish to be top notch for that. And as you just see, we could definitely do with some grommets. It's good, those cable management openings are great. They're there, they come out the top here for your wheelbase. There's some more sort of further tucked down in there for your pedals and to run power supply cables through. That's great, I love the idea of it, but would have been nice to have some grommets just to tidy things up a little bit, and again, to cover up where the paint kind of rippled during the painting process. I don't know if it was powder coated or sprayed, kind of hard to tell. But yeah, that could be neatened up. And as I say, the welds, they're fine functionally. They're just not as good as I've seen, elsewhere. But they're small complex. It's a little bit like when I said about the threads. They could do having a tap run down them to get off any paint. This is fit and finish, and sort of the quality that sets it above other cockpits. And I think at this price point, you could spend a little bit of extra time just on the fit and the finish. Now, don't get me wrong, there are no sharp edges. I didn't find any threaded bolts or inserts like I have done on other cockpits. Everything did fit as it should do, even if it required a little bit of persuasion occasionally. And the overall package, I think, looks lovely. As I say, if it wasn't for the fact that I've got a motion system that requires aluminium profile to bolt it to, this is a lovely looking cockpit, and it could quite happily be my main daily driver, assuming there's nothing much in the way of flex or wobble. Fanatec are also keen to point out that you don't have to use their seat on this rig, because it's on sort of normal seat sliders, that you can fit any seat that will bolt down to that from any manufacturer, and also to point out that you don't have to just use Fanatec pedals, shifter and wheelbases. It is pre-drilled to accommodate pretty much every brand out there. So should you already have, an Acertec setup or a Logitech setup or whatever it might be, Simucube, you haven't got to worry about it not fitting on this cockpit if you just wanted to buy the cockpit. And maybe you've got yourself a favourite racing seat that you've had for years and it's just spot on comfortable and you don't want to change it. You can still use that as well. Whether it's a side-mounted bucket seat like this, which they all kind of bolt on similarly, or whether it's a recliner that you bolt straight down to the runners. You might need a bracket or a bit of aluminium profile or something to adjust it, but they were keen to point out you're not tied down to Fanatec accessories only. So I'm going to get some sim racing gear on this, get it round, pointing the screen, and do a little bit of driving. That'll be tomorrow actually now. So I'll see this again in the morning and you guys will see me in a few moments drawing some conclusions and doing some driving. First things first, I think this is probably the nicest looking, I know this is subjective, cockpit that I've had in for review. I love the white, again, personal taste. I love the little yellow accents here and there. I love the look of the seat. I love the way the steering wheel sits in between these sections here with like this little spoiler almost there, even though that is technically part of the monitor mount. I like having it there, I think it looks nice. The additional body panels dotted around, the Fanatec logo here, there and everywhere. I think it all just looks lovely. And this seat, I'm not a fan of bucket seats, right? Because I have lower back problems. This seat is the most comfortable bucket seat I've ever tested. It's got really good lumbar support for my lower back. And to me, that is super, super important. Again, it might not be to you. You might be like, oh, I don't want that sticking in my lower back, sort of pushing your midsection out a little bit. But for me, it's perfect. And I could sit in this seat and race for days without any back problems. It is fully bucketed, but it's not too narrow, either for my hips and legs or for my upper back. Some bucket seats can be a little narrow because I'm reasonably broad. This is okay. And everything, the cushioning is just about right. Not too firm, not too soft, and of course it is breathable mesh as well. So I love the comfort, and I found no problem getting a driving position that I like. To me, this is just absolutely spot on. No issues there at all. Now, let's have a look at flex and wobble, because this is a high-end cockpit with a high-end price tag, and we expect it to be solid. Interestingly, there is no side-to-side wobble in the cockpit whatsoever from a wheel deck point of view. The seat doesn't move either, like that one I tested the other week that was really wobbly. There's none of that. But we do have wobble, or flex, sorry, not wobble. We have flex in this wheel deck up and down. And let me put a close-up of me showing you that there. And it's because of the way the bracket is, or the plate is mounted. It's hanging from two brackets, and that allows it to flex up and down. Now, when I was driving, I didn't notice it, but you can see it obviously in that clip that I've just showed you. And the reason for it is, as I say, we've got these two brackets that come down here, and then the wheel deck itself hangs off of them. And it's these brackets that flex where they bolt on the inside here, they come down and out, and they just flex in there. And it's because it's like adjustable. If I slacken off the adjusters to be able to just do this, which is super handy for different driver heights, it's like obviously mega wobbly. And then when you do them up, the play from the slider mechanism disappears, and we're just left with a bit in this bracket here. Now, it isn't massive. And as I say, I didn't notice it when I was driving, and I'll put a clip up of me driving now, in fact. Yeah, whether you can see it or not from the side in this clip, I don't know, but I didn't feel it whilst driving, so it didn't take away any of the detail or the force feedback that I'm used to and sort of expected from this wheelbase. This is an 8 Newton meter wheelbase. And I typically run around 10 Newton meters on my main rig upstairs. If you genuinely run a wheelbase at 15 Newton meters, 20 Newton meters, maybe that up and down flex could be an issue for you. I don't know, because you've really got to put a fair bit of force on it to get it to flex. Now, I know 15, 20 Newton meters is a fair bit of force, So it might be that you notice it, but I imagine looking from what you're seeing now, you're probably not seeing the wheelbase kind of flex, you know, back and forward on its axis. I would guess. Obviously, I can't see the footage yet. So it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the sim whatsoever. And I was more... I actually played this longer than I would normally for when I test rigs because the seat was so comfortable, which sounds like a strange thing to say, but like I mentioned a minute ago, with bucket seats I get backache. This one was just super nice, so I actually played for a bit longer than I normally would in testing. But yeah, there was no... It didn't cause problem in driving, but you saw it there in the clip. There is some flex there. It may be an issue if you use a really strong wheelbase. Now, pedal tray... Didn't notice any flex in that at all either. The rig itself is on rubber feet. The rubber feet do have a little bit of give in them, and we're on carpet as well. So, you know, the whole rig ever so slightly moves when I apply enough force through my legs, sort of pushed against the seat as well. So, but when, you know, looking at the pedal tray in detail whilst I was testing it, it doesn't move at all. I could push it as hard as I wanted to. And again, the pedal tray, you just slacken off the two quick release handles like so, and you're able to pull it backwards and forwards. So this, you know, that's proper quick release adjustment, to be able to just slide that forward, slide this forwards, and then obviously move the seat if needed as well to adjust from shorter to taller drivers. Really strong selling points for those of us that race with friends or family. Now, the height adjustment for the wheel deck isn't quick release. That is those bolts I showed you on the inside earlier. But you do have like quick release angle adjustment. I'm not sure that that's of huge benefit because I don't really know why we'd need to adjust the angle of your wheel, but you can do it, and then you release the locking pin, it locks in place, or at least it should do, like that, and then you do those back up again, and then you're good. So it's there. I don't know quite when you'd use it. And of course the pedal tray, I showed you where those handles were earlier. I've got it in kind of a tilted down position, so the front is lower than the rear, because these pedals naturally lean back quite far, so I find having the tray tilted forward works best for me. But I think the overall package is good. Obviously, we had the issue with paint being in the screw holes on the threads that made the bolts a little difficult to get in. So just be aware of that. Should you buy one, make sure you do get your bolts in square and don't cross thread them. What else didn't I like? Oh yeah, the cable management holes, which there's none of at the back here. Oh yeah, there's a couple up the top here. These cable management holes are great because I can see, what, 6 of them, three on each side, I can see. They start right at the far corner there, so your cables can come in, come up, come out, and then just across to your wheelbase there. Super neat and tidy. Again, I guess they're going for something that looks really good. So neat, tidy cable management is all part of that. And they're on both sides, so you can have your data cable, USB, your power cable. If you run your pedals into wheelbase, they can come up and through here as well. And then the pedal tray, there was 4 handles you might have noticed when we did the close-up earlier. 8 handles, sorry. The top 4 are for the pedal tray to adjust that up and down, but then there's a separate tray below the pedal tray that is for you to put things like the PSU for your wheelbase in and other bits and bobs. That can actually be raised up or lowered down as well. And having the quick release handles for the pedal tray made it super easy to fit the pedals as well. I just put the tray in the utmost position, and then there was loads of clearance underneath to get my hands in and get my bolts done up. So that was super easy. Installing the wheelbase was super easy as well, because we've got all this access here, you know, without any trouble to get to the bolts. And something else, was it a Next Level Racing rig I reviewed where my knee was hitting like this piece? And again, the seat is a bit far back. Where would I actually want it? There. I've got none of these clearance issues, you know, and that was one of the things with whichever rig it was. No matter what position I wanted to be in, I had always trouble with my knee smacking onto things. You've got plenty of room here. And again, if you're a taller person, I'm 6 foot. If you're a taller person, you have the seat further back, so your leg would sort of, you know, stretch out a touch further anyway. So I think overall, it's a good cockpit. Clean up the threads with a tap, whichever Chinese sweatshop is assembling these. Get some grommets for the cable management holes. That would definitely tidy it up and be a plus. And, oh yeah, I didn't like the way where they'd folded the metal over on the inside in the corners and just let it split open and then kind of, you know, bend it flat and then paint over it. But again, this is sort of fit and finish quality issues rather than functional stuff. Doesn't affect the way the rig performs. Seat, solid, super comfortable, although you can use whatever seat you want. No flex in the pedal tray whatsoever, and minimal flex in the wheel deck, albeit there is some. But I think that is the compromise for being able to have this quick release mechanism. It is hanging just on these two, you might be able to see it, but these two brackets come down and they extend this way. The steering wheel then extends this way. That gives us, obviously this is loose now, this gives us leverage, which is gonna be on these points here. I think if they wanted to eliminate that flex, you would need a bracket that not only comes down here, but comes down here as well. So this front bit is more supported, and then have a second pair of these, what appear to be aluminium kind of roller mechanisms on there. But the issue with that is it would then stop how far forward you could bring it. Yes, this looks a bit silly, but somebody might need it this distance. It would limit it to kind of about there. So you'd only have from there to there as an adjustment range. I mean, it's something, but it would limit it. But that would stop the up and down flex because this front end would then be bolted on as well as the back end of the wheel tray. Again, maybe it's something, they could perhaps extend these steel rods. I mean, that would give you more, they could extend the steel rods both backwards and forwards a little bit. Probably another couple of inches before it starts to get close to where your hands would be. And that would give you that extra adjustment should they add another pair of these. They're probably not going to, but it would be easy to do because it's just a redesign of this bracket, literally mirroring what's at the back of it at the front and adding a second one of these sort of bearing roller type pieces. In fact, even adding the longer steel rod wouldn't be that hard. They've got longer steel rods because they use them for the pedal tray. But yeah, so that's really it. We've got that little bit of play, or flex up and down for the wheel deck. Again, I say it's minimal. There's nothing side to side. Literally, that is rock solid. And with all this additional webbing amongst the tubing, I'm not really surprised. Even things like this monitor mount sort of base here and the body panels, because they bolt across both sections of the cockpit, both sides, it all adds to the rigidity and helps keep it really tight and really solid. So it's a good solid cockpit with minimal flex up here. And if that's a problem for you, obviously it is. I think for most people, it will probably be just fine. So there will be a link in the description, should you want to pick one up. I think that's probably all there is to say. Yeah, if you've enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up, maybe even a sub if you haven't already. And if you fancy one, feel free to click through and pick one up. As always, thank you very much for watching and take it easy.